Well met, my friend. Be at ease. Here all are welcome. Please, call me Echo. I am one of many who oversees fates of countless others like yourself. Adventurers, thrill-seekers, treasure hunters, saviors. Many have set forth on a journey for infinite reasons. And today marks the first step of the journey of the heroes of Lowforge. Ah, dear Lowforge, city of wonders, mystery, and riches. A massive walled city that was founded 700 years ago. Its founder, Dovin Lowforge, was a dwarf who came to these plains to survey the land, and to his shock, he found gold. But not just a few pieces, but the biggest vein of gold ever seen in Faerun. They called this the Great Vein of Lowforge. Dovin founded a town near the water, as he knew travelers by sea would come by the hundreds to aid in digging up this gold. The town flourished, its citizens grew, and the town expanded, growing to a large city where over 10,000 people live now. Many come to Lowforge to seek their fortune, to grab their pick and mine their fortune, because ever since Dovin Lowforge first found this vein, it has never run dry. Our tale begins with a horse-drawn wagon slowly leaving a mighty forest. The clops of the horse's hooves in a rhythmic step as the rays of sun no longer contend with the treetops to pour its light upon the cart and its passengers. A young female half-elf lifts her head up, basking in the warmth of the sun. She smiles a bit and looks over the long open fields to spy her destination, the City of Lowforge. A gruff dwarf at the reins of the wagon spits on the road as he urges the horse to keep its pace up. "Well, lads, and lass, there she is, the City of Lowforge." In the distance, a large stone structure reaches high over the fields, at least 100 feet high. A massive wall surrounding the city, with several tops of buildings peeking over the walls. At the corners of each wall, large towers with several windows can be seen, as well as the movement of guards atop them, keeping an eye on the land, ever watchful and vigilant to protect their city. "So, what business would you have at the city, Furbog?" asks a man wrapped in a cloak. "The name is Norwood, by the way." The male Furbog looks over and responds, "I was requested to help this place. The graces of nature give me guidance on where I am most needed to help keep the green from being destroyed. And please call me Moss." A male tiefling raises his brow at the answer, smirks, and chimes in. "Awfully rude to ask another's business before stating your own, Sir Norwood. But if you are so inclined to know what we all desire, I'll be straightforward with you. I am Crowley St. Victor, and I seek the College of Magic in Lowforge. I have several things I wish to learn, and require the finest things available to accomplish this." Norwood speaks up. "I see. I also apologize to you all. I mean no disrespect in being cautious of your doings. My reasons to travel here are unique, to say the least. I received a vision of sorts. It showed me this city ablaze, and a voice said, 'Make haste, for this is what awaits Faerun without your aid.' Now, I'm not exactly one to believe everything I dream, but this seems a bit too real for me to ignore. The young half-elf looks at Norwood with concern in her eyes. That's a rather terrifying vision, sir, but I'd prefer not to let that happen. Crowley looks towards the young lady and asks, And what of you, lass? What brings someone so young to a city that has been attacked here and there for 6 months? She turns to him. My name is Nova, and honestly, I saw the call to arms that Lowforge sent to the surrounding villages, and I thought I could do something to help the people. I have no actual home of my own, and travel frequently, but if someone needs my help, I will do all I can to aid them. A smelly male halfling sits near the back of the cart, looks on and barks out several things to the group. Words none of them can understand at first. Oh, you know, talk like tribe. Gotcha. Me say, you strange Novi. Why no ask for shiny? Trim good boy. Gonna find lots of shiny for tribe. Nova, Moss, and Norwood look on with raised eyebrows at the strange behavior at the halfling, until Crowley speaks up. I didn't quite understand that gibberish, but I take it your tribe are goblins, Trim? Oh yes, Trim tribe real tough. Trim strongest. Trim sent to go find more shinies for the tribe. Crowley smirks, and under his breath he says, That explains the smell, and continues aloud. So they sent you when they heard there was a call to arms in hopes that he'll be rewarded for aiding the city. Well, don't think it rude of me, but first impressions in a new city are quite important. Let me do something for you, my friend. Crowley snaps his fingers as he casts prestidigitation and cleans up Trim, removing the dirt and filth from his face, and, to the group's relief, the awful smell that would be quite rude of me to try and explain in lesser terms. As the group on the cart exchange their pleasantries for a bit, the wagon finally reaches the outskirts of Lowforge. Massive iron gates are raised as a platoon of guards and soldiers are outside the walls, talking to the dozens of people who seek entry, answering questions. The dwarf lets his passengers off the cart, and thanks them kindly for their coin, and soon after, the horse turns the wagon around, and he heads back down the road to the west. Several guards are asking questions of the people who wish to enter the city gates. Some are turned away, others are led inside by a few guards making their rounds. A guard in half-plate armor with a parchment and quill approaches the group. All right, names and purpose for coming to Lowforge. Speak up, we have a lot of people to check. One by one, each of the travelers approach and give their names and reasons. However, when Trim and Crowley speak to the guards, there is a distinct pause in the guard's questions, as he looks them up and down, and takes note of several things about them. Well, we have to check anyone coming into the city for dangerous things. We're in a war, after all. The guard captain will take you lot to the keep so they can see for it themselves that you're not a danger to the city. Nova then interjects. I have done nothing wrong. Why am I suspicious? The guard snaps back. You all came on the same dingy wagon from who knows where, asking just to walk into the city? How do we know none of you are spies? You try snapping back at me again like that, little Miss Elf, and I'll give you a night in irons in the prison. You understand? She shrinks back, the terror in her face clear at the guard's threat. The others can tell she does not wish to be jailed, and reluctantly agree to the guard's demands. A guard captain with several soldiers wearing chainmail arrive and escort the 5 to the keep in the southern section of the city. While they are en route, they do take notice of how busy the city is, even this close to sunset. Vendors are still selling their wares in the stalls. A few pubs are serving drinks to their patrons, while other drunkards are leaving for the day. Not exactly what you'd expect from a war-ridden city, Norwood remarks, as one of the guards responds. Course, inside these walls, people are still living their lives. We may be at war, but our duty as soldiers is to protect our city and our families from anything, be it from any direction. That's enough out of you! The guard captain roars as the soldier clamps his mouth shut. As the captain continues, it is our duty, but the only way these people can keep going on with their happy lives is that we do not talk about the war. The remainder of the walk to the keep is a solemn one, as the five respect the soldiers and not wish to cause trouble to the innocent city folk that are only trying to survive. As they reach the southern section of the city, the sun gently sets, leaving the night sky clear and cloudless. The group is welcomed to the sight of a massive keep made of stone. This structure towers over any of the surrounding buildings in this area. The sounds of hammers hitting anvils and soldiers grunting in unison from training can be heard echoing from the large opening of the keep. The massive oak doors stayed open, but grand barricades were ready to be placed in case fortification was needed against enemy forces. Torchlights illuminate the inside of the keep as the captain leads the escorts within. Soldiers are seen running to and fro, gathering weapons, parchments, and other assorted objects, and bringing them to higher-ranking officials, who loudly bark orders. A doorway in the back of the room opens to a courtyard, where troops armed with practiced swords swing in unison as a captain orders them to keep attacking. On the side of the hallway, a staircase spirals upwards towards an elevated level of the keep that overlooks the entire hall, where a massive desk overrun with parchments and maps rests, as an aged man of about 80 years shuffles the papers back and forth, giving orders to a finely dressed soldier, while two elves stand next to his desk. This way, the general will have a personal word with you lot, the captain spouts as he leads the group up the stairs and onto the elevated landing. Once there, they see the older human going through the papers. He has gray and black hair, wears a deep blue robe, and a silver jeweled staff leans against the desk. Two sun elves near him look nearly identical. Tall, platinum blonde hair, they look to be a few centuries old, but still rather young in elf standards. They wear white and red garb, and each one carries a wooden staff, with a chained spellbook at each of their waists. The only distinguishing trait that would separate the two are their eyes, one with deep blue, the other with dark brown. The general, as the captain calls over to him, walks over to the group and introduces himself. General Thaddeus Mithril, leader of the Lowforge army, at your service. Please, at ease, my friends. With that one line, the group feels a definite aura of power and prestige from this man, that he has seen many a battle in his life, but he is not above treating others with due respect. Introductions of the travelers follow, as the general shakes each of their hands with a firm grip, shaking from the wrist, as is custom to let one know that you are armed for battle. The general apologizes for any rude treatment the group may have incurred while entering Lowforge, as the war has put quite the strain on the troops and citizens. They all understand and state their individual business here, citing that some of them wish to help in the war effort. Upon that statement, the older man at the desk turns and approaches the group hastily and introduces himself. Ah, yes. More fine youths that wish to help the people of this city. Fantastic, he says with a warm smile on his face. I am Archmage Rengrave. I am one of the head counselors of Lowforge, and the head of the College of Magic in the northwest district of the city. He graciously shakes Crowley's hand after hearing his interest in the college. We certainly could use all the brightest minds and the strongest of steel to help drive back these fiends. Wouldn't you agree, Mithril? Indeed, Rengrave. For the last 6 months, Lowforge has been besieged several times by forces that we can only assume reside somewhere in the Underdark. Yes, drow, orcs, goblins, Durgar, Snurfeblin, beasts that have time and time again tried to break down our walls and occupy our fair city. For what reason, we do not know. We've been over this a dozen times, and then some. It's the vein. We've had wars before where someone has tried to run us out for the gold, but why would such beasts have interest in riches? We don't have anything worth a damn in this city aside from the gold. The College of Magic, the one in Neverwinter, is significantly better. Warriors, Baldur's Gate has the finest troops in the land. Artifacts? The Red Wizards of Thay have a higher claim to that than anyone in the world. We have to face facts, Rengrave. There's no other reason for this bloodshed. Rengrave furrows his brow and shakes his head. I don't know, my friend. There are many riches in the world, but ours is not the greatest. I do pray that we find... A harsh and sudden striking of a bell is heard throughout the city. As the bell tolls, Rengrave and Mithril are immediately stricken with fear, as their faces go white as a sheet. No, it can't be. It's too soon. They just attacked 2 days ago. They usually haven't attacked again within a week of each battle. Everyone, to their stations! 3 bells! March to the south! Mithril composes himself as best he can as he and the captain rush downstairs, where chaos has erupted in the entry hall. Soldiers clatter back and forth, gathering their armor and weapons, and rushing out of the gates in formation. Rengrave looks back to the group in front of him, and pleads with them. My friends, I am sorry to cut this short, but it seems the enemy is upon us. They last attacked 2 days ago, and our troops have not all fully recovered after the last battle. Please, I beg you, lend us your aid on the battlefield, otherwise we may not live to see sunrise. The 5 look at each other, seeing the desperation in Rengrave's plea, that as much as he wishes not to ask this, he has no choice, and they all agree. The old mage thanks them, and points them down to the main floor. Arm yourselves, and follow General Mithril to the front lines. I shall rally what I can, and join the battle as soon as I can. May the gods watch over you this night. The 5 push through the mayhem that is the main floor of soldiers running about and make their way to the armory, where the quartermaster is placing weapons and armor onto tables as fast as he can. Nova and Trim quickly don some leather armor, while Moss grabs a hefty chain shirt from the pile. Crowley and Norwood invoke several incantations, illuminating their bodies with mage armor. As the quartermaster lays out several weapons, Nova hooks 2 short swords to her side. Trim grabs a short bow and a quiver of arrows. Moss and Crowley each find a sturdy quarterstaff, while Norwood hoists a long sword onto his back. As they finish their preparations, they can hear General Mithril in the main hall calling out to the troops. 6 squads of 50, line up and take your positions. 3 west, 3 east of the south gate. You 5, and the rest of you are with me. Onward! Mithril leads the charge as the battle has begun outside the walls of Lowforge. Orcs and Durgar are seen in the front, swinging maces and crude axes at the soldiers, who clash with their swords and shields against the horde. Archers in the back loose arrows on the soldier, landing several on their marks as soldiers fall and scream in agony. Mithril's eyes narrow as he sees the soldiers fall near the middle. Poisoned arrows! The damned drow bastards are using every trick possible! As the arrows fall from the sky, Nova readies her blades for any enemies that engage. But upon scanning the field, she realizes what the enemy is planning. The arrows aren't falling nearly as much to the sides of the battle as it is in the middle. but the soldiers are succumbing to the poisons and drop to the ground, writhing in agony. The enemy wishes to charge the middle and use that moment of panic to crush the heroes from within. She relays the information to her group, but before she can find the general, it is too late. Crowley spots several heavily armored orcs barreling through the heroes' ranks and push forward, intending to take down Mithril and crush the Lowforge army in one strike, but he will not allow that. The five rush quickly to intercept the advancing enemies. Trim launches a few arrows, dropping an orc to his knees, while Moss bellows a war cry and drops to all fours as he shifts from a furbog to a direwolf and sinks his teeth into a Durgar warrior. Nova crosses swords with an orc wielding a broadsword and quickly slashes at its vulnerable sides. Norward unleashes a volley of eldritch blasts upon the rearmost drow, and Crowley finds the right time to scorch their ranks with a well-placed fireball. The interception succeeded. They now have pushed the enemy back and allowed the Lowforge troops to regain their footing to hold their ground. However, in the midst of the battle, the heroes are approached by an orc clad in dark armor. Wielding an obsidian sword and clutching a shield, the orc charges the front line, roaring out a war cry that carries across the battlefield. The enemy redoubles its efforts, fighting to the brink as the armored orc assaults the group at the center of it all. Bringing his blade down hard on his foes, the orc unleashes necrotic forces that wound Moss and Nova, but his advantage is soon lost as Nova climbs atop the direwolf, and with their combined efforts, they are able to shred his armor to pieces and sink the wolf's teeth deep into his neck. As the orc falls, the group take a breath of relief as Trim searches the corpse of a drow archer for arrows to replenish his supply, and discovering a unique short bow among the bodies, one that seems to have been made of the bones of a dragon and has several blue scales covering the grip.
Ooh, Trim was right. You definitely have shiny out here. I help myself, thank you.
He gladly places the shiny, as he calls it, on his back as he grabs a few more arrows from the dead. The sounds of battle come to an abrupt halt as the sound of a horn blows from the enemy's side, and the battle stops. The orcs and Durgar are frozen without their commander. Only a few moments pass, but it feels like an eternity as the two armies stand poised to clash again, when a booming voice overtakes the silence of the fields.
Is this truly the best you have to offer, Lowforge? You think falling one commander is your greatest victory?
As the voice carries, several orcs and creatures begin to turn and flee as the voice booms louder.
Cowards!
The voice yells, as massive spikes lunge from the earth, impaling the retreating troops.
You live and die on the battlefield, and you do not flee until I have had my fill.
A shadow is noticed in the night sky by Trim, who points out a massive winged beast with a two-headed creature riding atop it. The beast descends and lands a mere 100 paces from the heroes. The beast looks to be a huge winged lion with dark trinkets dangling off its mane. It kneels down to let its rider off, a large two-headed ogre, battle-scarred, with a massive sword on its back. The ogre steps forward and begins to lean back, almost as if he's about to fall backwards. But suddenly, columns of stone rise from the earth around him, forming into a large throne as he reclines into it.
You lot, the one that fell Commander Skullgrinder, step forward.
The group look to each other and nod, Crowley remarking, He is definitely the leader. We can end this war right now if we can take this one down. Let's end this fast. As they move to bridge the gap between them and the ogre, Norwood spots him, melding his hand into the stone throne he sits upon. Before he can call out the leader's actions, two massive stalagmites burst through the ground to each side of the group, causing them to take a defensive stance against the unknown threat.
It's feeding time, my pet.
In joyous laughter, the ogre shouts. A large creature flies down from the sky and attacks the group. They now face a wyvern, snapping its jaws and stabbing at them with its sharp tail. The group fends off the first volley of attacks, when Nova, Crowley, and Norwood are suddenly restrained. They thought the orcs or drow had lassoed them with ropes, but to their horror, their bindings came from one of the stalagmites that had appeared. "It's a roper!" Norwood shouts as he attempts to break free from the tendrils. Crowley realizes the roper only intends to hold the wyvern's meal and quickly escapes the creature with a misty step. He appears next to Trim, saying, "They're only toying with us. The leader needs to die now, and this will be all over." Trim nods and pulls his newly acquired bow from his back and readies an arrow.
Trim gonna make you dead and get all the shiny for Trim tribe.
He smiles as he draws the bow. Lightning begins to spark from it, and as the shot aimed at the leader is loosed, a mighty lightning bolt flies with the arrow. The bolt flies towards its target, and as it nears the throne, Crowley cannot help but smile and think, "Burn that bastard to cinders!" The lightning sails, nearing its target, and then the lightning bolt suddenly curves around the throne, completely avoiding the relaxing leader. Dread fills the group's hearts as their attack had failed, but now had to deal with the roper and the wyvern that were still trying to devour them. The roper tightened its grip on Nova, nearly breaking her ribs from the pressure, while the wyvern's stinger found its mark upon moss. The dire wolf had reverted back to his furbog form, clutching his wound, managing to stave off the deadly poison. Though the battle was dangerous, Norwood managed to escape his binding and sever the tendril that restrained Nova, who promptly drove her blades into the wyvern's neck, a mere second before the wyvern sunk its teeth into the poor rogue. Crowley's fire magic and Trim's arrows found their mark in the roper's eye and mouth, as the creature shuddered and hunched over, dead. The ogre scoffs at the fall of his two minions and stands from his throne.
Very well. I have lost enough minions today. I shall crush you under my foot personally.
The ogre cracks his knuckles as he reaches for the blade on his back, when suddenly, through the dark night skies, a light appears near the heroes. An arcane gate opens, and out it steps Archmage Rengrave, his two elf companions, and several dozens of troops, armed, healthy, and ready to fight. The Archmage speaks.
Enough of this meaningless bloodshed. We end this tonight, ogre.
He claps his staff to the ground as fire and lightning begin to surround him. The ogre looks at the mage, the heroes that still stand, and the refreshed troops to the field, and snaps his fingers.
I see. Then today you live to see the sun once more. Return to the Underdark, my minions. We shall let them have this victory. But know this land will be mine, and when it is, you shall all fear the eternal night that shall be brought forth by King Grugzul.
The enemies begin to turn and flee the battlefield, disappearing in the heavy trees and the darkness of the night, as the king leaps atop his winged mount and flies off into the darkness. The troops try to loose several arrows and spells at the fleeing king, but just as the lightning from before, the shots seem to ignore their target. Rengrave and Mithril approach the five that had combined their strength to not only kill one of the king's commanders, but also to delay the king from joining the battle. Rengrave wipes the sweat from his brow and speaks aloud.
Thank goodness you managed to shake the king's confidence. Otherwise, I don't think this trick would have worked.
Trick? Nova asks, very confused. The two elves that accompanied Rengrave smile and tap their staffs to the ground, and the reinforcements that came with them through the portal vanish into thin air.
Illusions? Crowley shouts with a gaped jaw. You came out here to the battlefield with nothing more than illusions and tried to bluff the king?
Well played. Rengrave smiles warmly.
It is indeed a risk, but had we not tried something desperate, they may very well have crushed the army and taken over the city. But thanks to you all, we have won this day.
One of the twins speaks up.
Cheers to the Lowforge army!
His brother responds in kind.
Cheers to the heroes of Lowforge!
The army's cheers fill the night, hoisting their weapons in victory, for the heroes had indeed turned the tides of this battle. The army returns to the keep, as Rengrave wishes to talk to the five again.
The five of you have only been in this city a day, and we already owe you our lives. My heart swells at the fact that great warriors like you were able to save us from such a threat. I gladly welcome you all to Lowforge, and will do the best of my abilities to help you all in your endeavors. However, I do request your aid, if you would hear out my request.
Nova smiles at him. We'll gladly hear your request, Archmage.
Thank you, my dear. I shall request that you all have comfortable lodgings while in Lowforge, but my inquiries rest elsewhere. My pupils here, Lumen and Solus Brightmane, are twins, and especially gifted in magic and gathering information. They have been working tirelessly on gathering information of the Underdark army's movements and their plans. They have scouts that regularly report back with their findings, and if possible, I wish that the people who deal with these threats are people I can trust.
The five look to each other and discuss their options, eventually reaching an agreement that they will indeed aid the city. As the fact that this threat still looms in the distance, there will be little time to go about their daily lives.
Your aid is much appreciated, my friends. For now, please rest. I shall arrange a place for you to stay in the Commons of Lowforge. The Shovel's Rest is a reputable place for soldiers and workers to rest after tiring days. If there is anything else you wish to know, I will be here.
Norwood speaks up. Thank you, Archmage. Your kindness is appreciated, and we will look forward to speaking with you again on the morrow.
Oh, one last thing. The troops had recovered some of the spoils from the battlefield, and I feel these may be of use to you. Please, take what you will from it.
Rengrave removes a burlap cloth from the table and reveals several weapons, armor, and trinkets. Among them are the obsidian sword the commander was wielding, a pendant with a strange-looking eye set in the center, and a set of silken gloves with gemstones on their back. Nova picks up the gloves and puts them on, sensing they enhance the speed and accuracy of her hands. Crowley dons the pendant, stating that something so distasteful would not bother him in the least, and upon donning it, he feels an aura emanating from the pendant, granting him a bit of protection. Norwood inspects the obsidian sword, noting the black rose pattern engraved on the guard of the handle, but when he holds it aloft, he senses something. a presence whispering in his mind that this weapon shall greatly aid him, but only if he can unlock its true potential. He sheathes it to his side and thanks Rengrave for his aid. The party grows weary and wishes to retire for the late night. Lumen gladly leads the party to the Shovel's Rest, where upon entering, many soldiers are already there, toasting the night to the heroes of Lowforge and enjoying their victory. Nova smiles and says, "As they should. It was a harsh battle and they should celebrate." Lumen leads the group to their rooms and wishes them a good evening, which they do respond in kind. Upon entering his own room, Trim leaps onto a bed and quickly passes out, without even removing his clothes or wiping off the blood and dirt from the battle. One by one, the others rest in their beds, proud at their victory for the city, and resting up for the next day, and the new sights and people they will meet on their long journey to save Lowforge from the threat of the Underdark.